I've been working at Burger Barn Express for almost 3 years, long enough to know exactly how much grease a human body can accumulate before it becomes a workplace hazard. I started as a cashier during my senior year of high school, mostly because it was close to home and they let me eat for half off. I stayed because it was one of those rare fast food places where the people actually looked out for each other. We weren't exactly a family, like corporate loved to say in the training videos, but we were a crew, a band of tired, underpaid, occasionally burnt-out misfits who kept the line moving no matter what chaos the day threw at us. By the time this story takes place, I was the evening shift lead, which meant I was the one holding things together when the managers clocked out around 6 p.m. and the dinner rush started. My crew consisted of Tanya, who could run the fryer blindfolded; Luis, our resident grill master who claimed he could flip burgers faster than corporate could invent new slogans; Kayla, quiet but wicked smart, handled the register and drive-through multitasking like a champ; and Marcus, our part-timer who mostly existed on energy drinks and chaotic energy. We weren't perfect, but we were efficient. Our rhythm was tight. Burgers down, fries up, orders bagged, timers beeped, everything wiped and restocked in the lulls. Every night, once the last customer left at 11:45, we'd lock the doors and start our closing routine, a well-oiled, choreographed dance of cleaning chaos. The grill got scraped, the fryer filters swapped, floors scrubbed, trash taken out, and the milkshake machine deep cleaned, a process that could make you question every life choice that led to this job. It usually took about an hour, sometimes longer on Fridays. But it was part of the gig. Corporate required everything to be spotless, and honestly, we took pride in that. There's something weirdly satisfying about seeing a shiny grill after a day of nonstop orders. For 3 years, that system worked fine. Managers came and went, but the rules stayed the same. You clean as you go, and you finish after close. Then he showed up. His name was Mr. Cranston, but he insisted we call him Manager Cranston. Not Mike, not Sir, not boss, Manager Cranston. He was one of those guys who'd clearly memorized every corporate handbook front to back and thought that made him a natural-born leader. Always in a crisp uniform, shiny shoes, clipboard in hand, like he thought he was running a NASA mission instead of a burger joint. He'd been transferred from another location to improve efficiency, according to the district manager. We didn't realize until later that this meant he ticked off everyone at his last store. From day one, he had notes. The counters are wiped down too often during service. Don't refill sauces during open hours. It looks unprofessional. No sweeping until the lobby's empty. Customers shouldn't see you clean. At first, it was just annoying. Then it became absurd. Our store had a long, open kitchen where customers could see the staff. Apparently, corporate had gotten complaints from customers at other locations about unsightly cleaning during meal times. So Cranston decided to apply his own extreme interpretation of clean invisibly. He gathered us one evening before the dinner rush and laid it out like a sermon. From now on, he said, pacing in front of the fryer like he was addressing a courtroom, no one is to be seen cleaning during open hours. No mops, no rags, no sanitizer bottles, nothing. Cleaning happens after close, not before. We want customers focused on the food, not the mess. Tanya raised a hand. You mean like, not even wiping the counter if ketchup spills? Exactly, he said, nodding. Just leave it. We'll handle everything after close. Luis glanced at me, mouthing, is he serious? I asked the obvious question, but the closing checklist already takes about an hour. You're saying we can't start any of it until after midnight? Correct, Cranston said, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. You'll be more efficient if you're focused on one task at a time. Kayla frowned. We're supposed to clock out 15 minutes after close, though. Cranston smiled, the kind of smile that makes you want to throw a pickle slice at someone. Then you'll need to be fast. It wasn't long before the cracks started showing. We tried following the new rule that night. The fryer oil overflowed because no one was allowed to skim it mid-shift. The dining area looked like a war zone of ketchup packets and napkins. By 10 p.m. customers started complaining that the place was dirty. And cleaning afterward? Forget it. Even working double speed, it took over an hour. That night, I clocked out at 12:56 a.m., dead on my feet. Cranston waited by the door, checking his watch. You were supposed to be out by 12:15, he said. Then maybe let us start cleaning before midnight? I said. He just stared, then said, "That's not your decision to make." The next week, it got worse. We'd try sneaking small cleanups during slow hours, wiping a counter here, taking out trash between orders, and every time, Cranston would appear from the back like some kind of fast food phantom. "No cleaning during open hours," he'd bark. "Customers shouldn't see that. Do you want to make us look sloppy?" One night, he actually took the rag out of Tanya's hand mid-wipe. "We clean after close," he said. She looked like she might throttle him with it. The crew started grumbling. Kayla muttered that she was going to quit. Louise started clocking out exactly on time and walking out, whether the floor was mopped or not. I kept trying to keep things running, but it was getting harder to justify staying late for free. Then Cranston started threatening write-ups for anyone who clocked out late, and anyone who refused to stay until everything was done. That's when I realized how bad it could get. I went to him privately one night after close. The store was empty, lights half off, just the hum of the coolers and the smell of burnt oil. "Manager Cranston," I said, trying to stay professional, "I think we need to talk about the cleaning policy. It's not physically possible to close everything properly in 15 minutes. The grill alone takes." "Excuses," he said, cutting me off. "You've been here long enough to set an example. You'll find a way." "But," "No buts. I expect results. Or maybe I'll find someone who can produce them." I stared at him, trying to decide if he was serious. He was. That night, I wrote a note to myself in my phone. "Document everything." That's when I started planning my compliance. Cranston's second week started with a laminated sign. He taped it to the swinging door between the lobby and the kitchen like he was christening a ship. White plastic, glossy, with the Burger Barn Express logo at the top and the words Operations Optics Initiative in bold. The text underneath was corporate-sounding enough that at first glance it looked real. It wasn't. Later, I would find out he'd written it himself in Word and printed it on the Office HP. At the time, it just felt like an escalation. Operations Optics Initiative. Effective immediately. No cleaning in view of guests during open hours. No chemicals/appliances, mops, buckets, sanitizer, squeegees, visible in lobby or open kitchen during open hours. Closing cleaning window, 12 a.m. to 12:15 a.m. Clockout compliance. All closers clocked out by 12:15 a.m. Failure to comply will result in coaching, write-ups, and possible termination. He used bold like it was a weapon. The way his eyes tracked us reading it told me he'd been waiting for this moment. Tanya squinted at the sign. "What's an optics initiative?" "Sounds like something you need glasses for," Louise said. Cranston clasped his hands behind his back. "It's about how we're perceived. Guests don't want to see the messy backstage process. They want the show." Kayla flicked a glance at the dining room where a toddler was hurling fries at a high chair like a confetti cannon. "They don't mind seeing that show. Parents are a market segment," Cranston said. "We can't control the guests. We can control you." I felt my jaw tense. "We need the sanitizer bottles at the front line. Food safety." He pointed at the sign. "Food safety is non-negotiable. Optics are also non-negotiable. We'll relocate sanitizer out of sight." Out of sight meant on a bottom shelf behind the fryers, where you could reach it if you wanted to toast your elbows. That dinner rush was a stress test. Cranston stationed himself like a sentry near the pass, watching. We weren't supposed to wipe counters in front of guests, but you can't bag an order when your counter's a slip-in slide of grease. I pulled a rag toward me on reflex, and his voice came sharp. "Lead or not, you're not exempt." "Got it," I said, shoving the rag back under the counter. We carried on without the small resets that keep you sane. When a ketchup packet burst across the counter, Kayla couldn't wipe it. When a basket of fries popped and spattered oil onto the floor in a constellation, Tanya wasn't allowed to lay down a wet floor sign. The sign was okay, but the mop wasn't, because he thought the mop made us look like janitors. So the sign sat like a lonely triangle while the oil freckles flashed under the heat lamps. The line got long. People start to notice when a place looks sticky. A dad with a ball cap asked, "Is someone gonna wipe this table?" And I had to say, "We'll get that after close," because that was the script. He laughed like I'd made a joke. Then he realized I wasn't joking. By 10 p.m., the lobby looked like a birthday party had detonated. We were still hammering through orders, and Cranston was still patrolling. He kept calling out time checks. 75 minutes until close. You should be on track. Like we were a NASA launch window and not a burger joint doing math with grease. At 11:45 p.m., I locked the doors. We'd stopped taking orders at 11:40 to ensure everyone already in line would get served. Then I killed the tills, printed the closeout reports, and did the quick sweep of the lobby. Eyes only, per Cranston's rule, for cash or stray customers. The last guy, a night nurse, sipped his milkshake on the way out and said, "Good luck, guys." He'd been in before. I took a deep breath. Okay, go time. We exploded into motion like we always did, except compressed to 15 minutes, which is like trying to fold laundry in a blender. Tanya tugged on oven mitts and cranked open the fryer filter panel. The oil coughed like a throat. Luis picked up the grill scraper and shot me a look that said this is already impossible. Kayla sprinted through the dining room with the broom like she was on a timed obstacle course. Marcus hefted the trash and almost toppled because the lobby cans were so packed down the bags had fused. I set my phone timer to 15 minutes because if I didn't, I knew we'd lose the thread. The sound of the timer ticking felt like an accusation. 7 minutes in, I shouted, "Luis, what's the grill status?" "Hot," he said, and still covered in burger ghosts. "Scrape, then shock," I said. "We'll do a quick pass now and a real pass tomorrow morning." "We don't do a quick pass," Cranston said from the doorway, then checked his watch. 8 minutes. "Then we don't do a real pass either," I said, not looking at him because I needed my face to stay attached to my job. When the timer hit 0, the grill was a dull gray smear and the fryers were half filtered and the floor hadn't been mopped. The trash was tied, but not out. The milkshake machine hadn't been opened. The drains had not been snaked. If the health inspector had walked in, they'd have burst into tears. "Clock out," Cranston said. "No," I said. "We need to finish. At least the fryers. Hot oil sitting unfiltered overnight is a hazard." "Clock out," he repeated, voice flat. "You were given adequate time. We were given 15 minutes to do an hour of work." He stepped closer. "Are you refusing a direct instruction?" I could feel Tanya's eyes on me. "Kayla's too," I said. "I'm not refusing. I'm clarifying that this is unsafe and not food safe, and—" Cranston reached for the clipboard. "I'll be noting your insubordination, lead." We argued in circles for 2 more minutes while my soul attempted to crawl out through my shoes. In the end, he got what he wanted. We clocked out. The store sat there, hot and half clean, like a patient we'd left on the operating table. I told everyone to go home. I stayed in the parking lot 10 minutes longer than I needed to, staring at the lit sign buzzing like a trapped hornet, trying to talk myself out of walking back in and doing it anyway. The next morning, opening shift had to do triage. They dragged me over the coals in the group chat. "What happened? Why is the grill like this? Who left the shake tubes greasy?" And I had to type, "New policy. Ask Cranston." Then I turned off notifications because my face was hot. By day 3 of the optics initiative, I started to see a pattern. The store was getting dirtier during the day because we weren't allowed to clean, which made the evening clean longer, which made the mornings angrier, which made everything feel like a rubber band stretched over a watermelon. Kayla started bringing gloves because the lobby tables were sticky. At 4 p.m. Marcus stopped volunteering for extra hours. Luis began writing times directly on the dry erase board next to the grill. Start filter, 12 o'clock. Finish, 12:24. He underlined them so hard the marker squealed. That's what I used later. Write-up came on a Friday night, because of course it did. Fridays are the worst. Customers who want to linger, kids who want to roam, deliveries that come late. We were already behind when the last guest left at 11:52. I did the lock check, set the alarm on back, and called, "Close." We hustled. Cranston hovered. He'd started using a whistle, a silver one, like a gym teacher. He claimed it was to avoid raising his voice. The first time he blew it, Tanya nearly dropped a basket of fries into the drain. At 12:09, I said, "Kayla, dump lobby trash and pull the bags to the back door. Marcus, break down the soda nozzles. Luis, shock the grill with water, then scraper." I kept my voice even, in that tightly wound way you do when the wheels are already off. "Lead," Cranston said. "You haven't mopped." "After fryers," I said. "Wet floors and hot oil don't mix." "Time is a resource," he said, checking his watch. "Use it better." When the clock hit 12:15, the floor was still dry, the fryers still filtering, the milkshake machine still a stainless steel mystery. Cranston's whistle chirped. "Clock out." "Give me 5 to empty the fryer filter," Tanya said, Not pleading, just practical. We're mid-cycle. Clock. Out. Leaving hot oil mid-transfer is. I started, but my voice had that brittle edge that meant I'd already lost. He stepped between me and the fryer, held up the clipboard like a talisman, and said loud enough to echo off the steel, "Clock out." I knew what would happen if I pushed then. He'd escalate. So I did what the policy said. I told them to clock out. I walked to the POS, clicked through the punch screen, and hit my own name. The numbers on the screen went bright for a second, midnight, then blinked out. When I turned around, he handed me a paper. It was an associate coaching form, with my name pre-filled and a neat box checked next to insubordination. The notes section read, "Employee question directive re. Optics initiative. Failed to demonstrate. Urgency. Negative attitude. Delayed compliance." "Sign," he said. "I'm not signing a lie," I said. He tapped the line. "Acknowledgement doesn't mean agreement. That's a myth managers tell to make this look less bad." He didn't argue that point, which would have been funny if I wasn't floating an inch above my own body. He just said, marking refusal to sign, and wrote it in the corner in block letters like a judge stamping a file. Then he handed me a copy and walked away like the conversation was a napkin he'd set down. I stared at the paper. The word insubordination looked as dramatic as he wanted it to. Tanya came up next to me, peered down, and said, "You gonna frame that?" "Maybe I'll decoupage it onto the fryer," I said. Luis leaned an elbow on the counter. "We quitting?" "I'll quit if you quit." "Don't quit because of me," I said. "Quit because you have a better thing." I folded the paper and slid it into my pocket. "Meanwhile, we're going to do exactly what the policy says." He frowned. "Which policy? The real one or Cranston Word document 2.0? "The one posted on the door," I said. "2. The letter." Kayla's eyes flicked to me. "What are you thinking?" "Nothing clever," I said. "Just, if we can't clean in view of guests, we won't. If we have 15 minutes, we'll take 15. If he tells us to clock out, we will. And we'll document the results." I didn't say the other part yet, the part that had been growing in my head like a crystal. That labor law wasn't a suggestion, and if Cranston wanted us working off the clock, we were going to put him in a position where his choices were on paper. The next afternoon, I arrived early with a small, spiral notebook. Blue cover, grid paper. I wrote closing log on the front. Inside, I made columns. Task, start, finish, notes, witness. I put it by the grill and told everyone they could add to it if they wanted, and that I was adding to it. Not to be dramatic, I said, to be accurate. Luis was the first to use it. He wrote, "Grill scrape pass number 1. Start, 12 o'clock. Finish, 12:07. Notes, still carbonized residue at corners. Witness, LJ, me, and Tanya." Kayla wrote, "Lobby tables sanitize. Start, 12:04. Finish, 12:12. Notes, sticky film on booths that requires 2 passes. Witness, Marcus." Tanya wrote, "Fryer filter and top off. Start, 12:02. Finish, left blank. Notes, interrupted by clock out." We did the log every night for a week, and every night Cranston told us to clock out at 15. Every night, I wrote unfinished in the notes with a rectangle around it. Every morning, opening dealt with the fallout and logged their times in a group chat. An ecosystem of proof started to accumulate, like stalactites. Customers noticed the mess before corporate did. There's a regular we call Foldy Guy because he folds his burger wrappers into tiny triangles and stacks them like art. He left a note under his wrapper. "This place used to be cleaner. What happened?" Kayla took a picture and texted it to the crew. Cranston saw it and called a huddle. "Don't take photos of customer notes. That's sensitive." "Is it sensitive because it's true?" Tanya said. "It's sensitive because it's an internal matter," he said. The next day, he printed another sign. "No cell phones in front." That one was real corporate policy. No photos of the kitchen in case of trade secrets or whatever. He weaponized it anyway, scolding Kayla for checking the time on her Apple Watch when there was a timer on the POS. He built these small electric fences and then watched us test them. On Tuesday, a delivery guy arrived late, and the oil we'd ordered wasn't on the truck. Cranston refused to sign the partial because he thought it made him look weak. We ran Friday night on oil that should have been changed Thursday. The smell of old oil is a different animal. It's a shirt that's been worn to a bonfire and then gym class. I logged the date in the spiral and wrote oil change overdue due to supply. When Tanya started the filter that night, it coughed like a smoker. At 12:15, it was mid-burp. Cranston blew the whistle. I gestured at the gurgling, orange-brown river. He stared at the clock. "Clock out," he said. Tanya peeled off her mitts, face blank. "You gonna babysit it, boss?" he said. "The system will complete the cycle," like the fryer was an obedient dog. We walked away. In the morning, openers found the filter had clogged and overflowed into the pan, congealing into a sort of motor oil custard. The photo in the group chat was decisive. Kayla bravely added a spoon emoji and the skull. I saved the picture to a private album and wrote down the date and time under evidence in my notes app. The write-ups multiplied. Negative attitude. Failure to adapt. Slowness during close. He got Marcus 4 excessive bathroom breaks, which meant Marcus had to pee during a 6-hour shift where we weren't allowed to leave the front unattended because it looked unprofessional. He wrote up Kayla for calling out the milkshake machine in earshot of guests. She'd murmured, "It needs a full tear down." And he said she was discussing back-of-house failures publicly. He wrote up Tanya for use of inappropriate language, which meant she said, "This is BS," near the walk-in. He hadn't written me up again, though, because I was careful. I answered every order with a "yes, chef" voice, even though he hated being called chef. I told him I appreciated the feedback and would action it. I used his words back to him like a mirror. The night he finally snapped at me, it was because of the grill. We'd kept the grill hotter during dinner because hotter meant faster, and faster meant fewer customers staring at our mess. But hotter also meant more carbonization, and more carbonization meant a longer scrape. Luis had been fighting it all night. At close, he lifted the scraper and said, "Listen," and ran it across the steel. The sound was like sandpaper on a tombstone. 15 minutes, Cranston said from the pass, not looking up from his clipboard. "Start the clock," I said and did. Luis got 1 pass, then 2. He splashed water, steam exploded, he scraped again. He looked at me and held up 4 fingers. I knew what he meant, for more passes to get to clean enough to not be ashamed. At 12 minutes, the grill looked better, but not right. Cranston checked his watch, put the whistle in his mouth, and tweeted. Luis didn't look up. He scraped. The sound was a rip in fabric. Cranston blew again. Sharper. Clock out. Luis paused, breathing, the scraper hovering like a sword. He set it down with exaggerated care. "If I stop now, the grill will cool with residue baked on. It'll take longer tomorrow." "Tomorrow is tomorrow," Cranston said. "This is now," I said. "I just need you to acknowledge, verbally, that you are instructing us to clock out with the grill unsafely." Unfinished. I corrected myself, and that any consequence of that is your responsibility. He smiled like a lid clicking shut. "I acknowledge that you are clocking out at 12:15 as scheduled." "That's not what I asked. It's what I said." When we clocked out, I didn't leave. I waited until he went to the office. Then I walked to the front door where the laminated optics sign was still taped at eye level. I took out my phone and snapped a picture. The flash reflected on the plastic. The whole thing looked like exactly what it was, a cheap policy, homemade and dangerous. Then I did something I hadn't done yet. I opened our district manager's contact, Dana M., DM, from a training email she'd sent months ago. I drafted a message. I didn't send it. Not yet. I was angry, and angry emails are like ketchup packets. They explode and get everywhere. Instead, I started assembling a packet. Not just one photo, but all of it. The spiral log, I snapped every page. The grill timestamps, the fryer's unfinished rectangles, Kayla's folded note from Foldy Guy, the oil custard picture, the schedule showing who closed which nights, the copy of my write-up. I scanned Cranston's sign with an app, so it looked as formal as he wanted it to be. I wrote a cover note in my notes app, bullet-pointed, clear, without adjectives. New posted policy prohibits all visible cleaning during open hours. New posted policy requires clockout at 12:15 regardless of closing status. Result: closing checklist consistently unfinished at 12:15. Staff instructed to clock out. Result: morning shift required to complete closings. Decreased cleanliness during open hours. Guest complaints increasing. Safety/food safety risk. Hot oil left mid-cycle. Grill residue. Milkshake machine not properly broken down nightly. Labor concern. Expectation to remain after 12:15 to finish when instructed to clock out. Pressure via write-ups for slowness. Attached, photos, logs, times, guest note, write-up copy. I added, we are following the posted policy exactly. Please advise. I'm not a whistleblower by nature. I just like it when the rules make sense. I knew this would turn into a thing if I pressed send. I also knew what would happen if I didn't. Nothing. The mess would spread, morale would crater, and one of us would get fired for attitude while he kept polishing his clipboard. The choice felt less like a choice and more like gravity. The push came from an unexpected place. On Sunday, my mom came through the drive-thru. She does that sometimes when she's been late at the clinic and doesn't want to cook. She ordered a grilled chicken salad, no croutons. Kayla recognized her voice and sent a discount through, which my mom will pretend not to notice and then bring me muffins the next day. When she got to the window, she looked past me and frowned. Everything okay? Looks busy. It always looks busy now. I said, then realized how that sounded. We're fine. She squinted. You look tired. We're working smarter, not harder, I said, and then the words tasted like aluminum because they were him, not me. Okay. She took the salad. Well, call me after close if you want me to wait up. Go sleep, I said. I'm not worth that. She laughed, then got serious. You are always worth that. When the night finally ended, when the whistle had blown and the clock had rolled over and the grill was a chalkboard under a heat lamp, I went to my car and stared at the phone screen with the draft email glowing like a lighthouse. Then I pressed send. Dana wrote back in 11 minutes. Subject: Closing policy and cleaning compliance at number 4477. From Dana M. Thanks for flagging. That sign is not corporate. Can you send me a clear photo of the sign and the posted close checklist? Also, can you confirm, have you or anyone on your shift been asked to remain after clocking out to complete cleaning? I stared at that last line for a long second. The way she'd phrased it told me she knew exactly what question she was asking. I didn't answer yet. I needed my answer to be surgical. The next day, Cranston added a new piece to his little theater, a camera. He'd moved the existing lobby camera to point more directly at the counter. Deterrence, he said, helps you remember the optics. He said this while adjusting the angle with both thumbs like he was taking a selfie. He didn't know yet. About the email. About Dana. About the fact that the shallow river of proof we'd been collecting had turned into a pool. I printed Dana's response and slipped it into the spiral notebook, tucked between fryers and grill. Not to be dramatic. To be ready. That night, when we hit 12:15 and the whistle chirped, we walked out into the dark together, the parking lot lights puddled and humming, the moon a smudge behind cloud. As we reached our cars, Tanya said, so, what now? We just keep leaving a mess and pretend this is normal? Not pretend, I said. Document. And then we let the rules do what they're supposed to do. She snorted softly. Rules never do what they're supposed to do. Sometimes, I said, thinking of the email winging its way through corporate servers, they do, if someone reads them out loud. I didn't sleep well. My brain kept playing the whistle sound in a loop. At 6 a.m., my phone buzzed. Another email from Dana. I'm dropping by your store tonight before close. Please don't mention this to your manager. I want to see the process as is. I stared at the line that said, don't mention this to your manager, and felt something in my chest loosen. Not victory, just a notch of alignment, like a wrench catching on the right direction. All day, the store did what it does. Burgers and shakes and endless small emergencies. Cranston did what he does. Whistles and clipboards and little fences. And I did what I do. Kept the line from eating us, wrote down times in blue pen, and waited for the gravity to catch up. When the clock hit 11 p.m., a woman in a blazer I recognized from a headshot in a training module walked in and ordered a milkshake. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't need to. Her eyes took in the sauce bottles under the line, the ketchup smear on the lobby trash lid, the laminated sign on the door. Cranston looked up, saw the blazer, and smiled. Customer smile, polished, warmed up, ready for showtime. Welcome to Burger Barn Express, he said. How can we make your night? Dana said, don't let me interrupt. I'll just watch. Cranston, to his credit, did not visibly panic. He did, however, go a little pink around the ears. He directed us through the last 15 minutes of orders with the breathless enthusiasm of a man accidentally auditioning for a role he'd already got. When the last guest left at 11:53, he called, close, with a flourish, like he'd caught a bouquet. Dana leaned on the counter and looked at the sign like it was a museum label. Then she looked at me, looked at the spiral notebook on the shelf, and nodded once, barely, as if she'd seen a word through a window. At 12 a.m., I set the timer. At 12:15, the whistle blew. At 12:16, we stood in a kitchen where the job was half done and the clock said we were done. Dana said, "Interesting." Cranston smiled like a wax figure. "We've become very efficient, actually." Dana glanced at the grill. The residue glinted. She glanced at the fryer, mid-cycle, bubbling like a science project. "May I see your posted closing checklist?" she asked. "Of course," Cranston said, and led her to the office. He didn't invite me, but I followed. When your fate is being discussed, you tend to be interested. In the office, there were more laminated signs. Cranston pulled a sheet from a binder. Closing checklist, kitchen. The times next to each task were corporate's estimate. Grill full scrape, 10 to 15 minutes. Fryer filter, 10 to 20 minutes. Floors, 10 to 15 minutes. Milkshake machine, 15 minutes. I had those numbers memorized because they were the ones I had been using for years. Dana tapped the times with a pen. "How do you accomplish these within 15 minutes total?" "We sequence," Cranston said quickly. "Parallel tasks. I also expect them to pre-stage equipment, so no visible cleaning during open hours," Dana said, repeating his sign back to him without looking up. He hesitated. "Correct. So where would staging occur?" He smiled, apologetic. We adapt." She smiled back, not apologetic at all. "I see." Her eyes traveled to the bulletin board, where my associate coaching form was posted in the little plastic sleeve marked active coachings. She looked at it for a second, long enough to read the checked box. "May I take a photo?" she asked. Cranston said, "Phones are not allowed back of house. A little too fast." Dana nodded. "Right?" she said, and took out a small black notebook instead. She wrote something down. Then she turned to me, and her voice changed, still professional, but less glassy. "Lead, can you show me your close log?" She was asking a question she knew the answer to, a lane to walk into. "Yes," I said, and put the spiral on the desk. She flipped, page by page. The squares of our handwriting marched by. Times, notes, unfinished boxes. She paused on fryer filter and top off. Notes, interrupted by clock out. She paused on grill scrape pass number 2. Notes, residue at corners persists. She paused on lobby table sanitize. Notes, 2 passes, sticky film. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She just absorbed. Then she looked at the laminated sign one more time, and the gravity finally arrived. Cranston was still smiling when Dana left, but it was a cardboard kind of smile, the kind that stays put because you're afraid of what happens if you let it move. She hadn't said anything dramatic. "No, we'll be in touch." "No, expect a call." She'd simply closed her notebook, thanked him for his time, and said, "I'll review this with HR and operations tomorrow." Then she'd nodded to me once, again, like punctuation. When she walked out the door, the silence she left behind was heavy enough to fill the fryer. The next morning, Cranston acted like nothing had happened. He even brought donuts. Team appreciation, he called it. He placed the box on the counter, peeled open the lid like he was performing surgery, and announced, "No cleaning rules have changed. Let's keep striving for excellence." No one moved toward the donuts. The glaze shone under the lights like a dare. He started assigning stations. Tanya took fryers again. She muttered that she was going to start having nightmares about bubbling oil. Luis ran grill. Kayla handled drive-thru. Marcus was on lobby. I was lead, as usual, except now the air had a new texture. Tight, watchful, waiting. I didn't have to say anything. Everyone knew. If Dana was really digging into it, she'd want documentation, and we had that by the binder full. That week, Cranston doubled down. He added another clause to his homemade policy. A fresh laminated page appeared on the board like a bad sequel. Addendum A, Operations Optics Continuation Policy. No prep or cleaning items to be visible to guests or camera feed prior to close. Staff expected to exhibit efficient urgency during 15-minute closing window. Any deviation from this standard will result in disciplinary review. Efficient urgency, Luis said, reading it aloud. That sounds like a heart condition. Kayla snorted. Tanya muttered, "He's writing fan fiction about corporate policy." Cranston's whistle hung from his neck like a badge of honor. He'd blow it for things that weren't even violations. Marcus wiping sweat from his forehead, Kayla adjusting her headset. Every shrill tweet was another brick in the wall between team and enemy. I started keeping a second notebook, my own, private, unfiltered one. The blue spiral stayed by the grill for data. The red spiral stayed in my backpack for thoughts. I wrote things like, Monday, floor slicked by register. Guest slipped twice. No visible mop allowed. Tuesday, Kayla asked if we could hide sanitizer in condiment bucket. Denied. Wednesday, Marcus said he dreams in Greece now. Some nights I thought about quitting, but something in me wanted to see where gravity would take Cranston. He'd built his own little world of laminated commandments. I wanted to see what happened when it cracked. The fallout came from the lobby. It was a Thursday, dead slow, just a few students with laptops and one older couple sharing onion rings. Around 9 p.m., the wife waved me over. Hon, can you get someone to wipe this table? It's sticky. I froze for half a second, instincts wrestling with orders. I'm sorry, ma'am. We have a policy about cleaning after close. She blinked. You're joking. I shook my head. I wish I were. She glanced at her husband, then back at me. Well, that's not appetizing. I smiled the way customer service veterans do when their soul leaves their body. Understood, ma'am. I'll make a note. She didn't yell, but she did take out her phone and snap a picture. I watched the flash, thinking there it is. The next morning, that same picture appeared in a local Facebook group. Burger Barn Express is going downhill. Sticky tables, no cleaning in sight. By noon, it had 30 comments. By 4, someone had tagged corporate. Cranston spent the entire day pacing the kitchen, muttering about public perception management. He accused Marcus of talking to customers too much and told Kayla not to hand out napkins so freely. By dinner, we were running on nerves and caffeine. The whistle sounded more than the fry timer. At close, Tanya whispered, he's circling the drain. Let him, I said. That's gravity. Friday morning, an email hit the store inbox. I wasn't supposed to have access, but the login password was the same for every Burger Barn. Barn 4477. The subject line, urgent, policy clarification, all managers. The sender, corporate ops compliance. Effective immediately, stores must adhere to all food safety and labor regulations. Cleaning may occur during business hours when necessary for sanitation. Employees must not be required or permitted to work off the clock. It was signed by Dana. I printed it, posted it right next to Cranston's laminated sign, and went back to prepping the fry station like nothing had happened. When Cranston walked in, he stopped dead. His eyes went from one sheet to the other, his bold homemade rules, and Dana's crisp corporate memo with the company logo. Who posted this? He asked. I said, corporate did. I mean, who printed it? Same answer. He stared another few seconds, jaw working. Then he peeled the memo down, folded it once, and tucked it under his clipboard. No need to confuse the team, he said. Wouldn't want that, Tanya muttered. That night, he was stricter than ever. Every whistle blow came sooner, sharper. The clock felt louder. When 12:15 hit, we clocked out exactly, leaving a battlefield of half-clean stations and sticky tiles. He stayed behind, maybe to prove a point, maybe to fix it himself. We didn't know, and we didn't ask. Saturday morning, Dana returned. No blazer this time, just a Burger Barn fleece and a neutral expression. She arrived unannounced, clipboard in hand, accompanied by a man in a gray suit who introduced himself as regional HR. Cranston paled like someone had unplugged him. They asked to see the closing checklist again. They asked to see time clock data. They asked to see the sign. He couldn't, because it was gone. I hadn't removed it. He had. That was strike one. Then they asked each of us separately about closing times and cleaning procedures. None of us exaggerated. We just told the truth. 15 minutes, Tanya said. Can't be done. Clocked out on time, work unfinished, Luis said. Unsafe to leave hot oil, I said. When they called me into the office, Dana closed the door and spoke quietly. Thank you for your documentation, she said. We confirmed the policy wasn't authorized. The HR guy added. Also confirmed multiple instances of off-the-clock expectation. I kept my face neutral, but my pulse was a snare drum. What happens now? I asked. Dana said, we'll handle that. In the meantime, you're not to communicate any of this to other stores. Understood. Understood. Cranston didn't show up Sunday or Monday. On Tuesday, a notice appeared in the office window. Store number 4477, interim management. Effective immediately, Assistant Manager L. Johnson will oversee operations pending reassignment of prior manager. That's me, L. Johnson. The crew noticed first, of course. Wait, that's you. Kayla shouted, grinning. I shrugged. Interim. Probably until they find another clipboard enthusiast. Tanya popped open a bag of fries like confetti. I'll take interim over idiot any day. We still had to deep clean the aftermath of Cranston's reign. Grill corners blackened, fryer pans caked, drain smells older than sin. But for the first time in weeks, no one yelled about optics. I reinstated the old rule. Clean as you go. The difference was immediate. By mid-shift the counters gleamed again. The floor wasn't sticky, and people actually laughed. At close, we finished everything in 45 minutes, on the clock, and walked out together into the cool air, grease-tired but satisfied. 2 days later, Dana called. Cranston's employment has been terminated, she said flatly, for falsifying labor records and violating sanitation protocols. The district's impressed with how you handled things. You'll get a temporary pay bump during transition. I thanked her. I didn't cheer. Because the truth was, I wasn't happy. Not really. Sure, the bad guy was gone, but so was any illusion that corporate cared until they had to. It took photos, logs, and a potential public relations nightmare to make them listen. When I hung up, I looked around the empty store. The hum of the freezers was steady, almost peaceful. The laminated sign was gone, but the ghost of its tape outline still clung to the glass like a scar. I peeled it off slowly, folded the brittle tape into my palm, and threw it away. That weekend, I drove past Burger Barn Express without going in. The lights glowed soft through the windows. Inside, I could see Tanya at the fryer, Luis at the grill, Kayla wiping a table during open hours. Customers were laughing again. The place looked alive. I rolled down the window, breathed in the faint smell of fries, and felt something complicated, a mix of pride, relief, and fatigue. I didn't post about it online right away. The Reddit story version would make it sound like an easy victory. Bad boss fired, good team triumphs. But real life is messier than fries and justice. Cranston's rules tried to erase the human part of the job, the sweat, the noise, the in-between moments where people actually keep the place running. All I did was show what happens when you take humanity out of the process and then follow the instructions exactly. Sometimes, malicious compliance isn't loud. It's paperwork and patience. It's keeping the log, setting the timer, and waiting for gravity. And when it finally hits, it's quiet. Just a manager's name disappearing from a schedule, and a store that smells like fresh sanitizer instead of burnt oil. Edit. Since you are all asking, I will do my best to tell you how we got to the end with Cranston. The week after Dana's first visit, everything at Burger Barn Express existed in that weird space between a storm and its thunder. You know it's coming. You just don't know how loud it'll be. Cranston, to his credit, didn't immediately implode. He doubled down instead. Like a gambler who'd already lost his paycheck and decided the next hand would fix everything. He started coming in earlier, staying later, and acting like the store was a stage, and he was the misunderstood genius in the spotlight. We started calling him Spielberg behind his back, because he didn't want a restaurant. He wanted a production. He even had a new catchphrase. If we all do our jobs right, customers won't even see the work. That line stuck with me for a lot of reasons, mostly because I realized it wasn't just about optics. He really thought work only counted if no one could see it. The night everything came to a head started like any other. It was a Friday. Payday. The kind of night when everyone's energy runs on fumes and caffeine and the fryers hiss louder than people talk. We were one crew member down. Marcus had called out sick, and the evening traffic was brutal. People lined up past the door. Drive-through wrapped around the building twice. Cranston was in rare form, strutting around with his clipboard like it was a scepter. Every time someone tried to wipe a spill, he was there, barking the same line. No cleaning in front of guests. Appearances matter. By 10 o'clock, the floor behind the counter had gone from slightly slick to ice rink of despair. Tanya slipped once, caught herself, and shot me a look that said, "We're gonna die in here." Luis muttered under his breath, "We're gonna end up on OSHA memes." At 11:30, the last rush hit. Orders stacked up. Grease built up. The milkshake machine started to sputter, gumming up from overuse. And through it all, Cranston just kept pacing, occasionally jotting something down on his clipboard like a coach judging a team that was losing on purpose. At 11:45, I checked the clock. 15 minutes to close. My brain did the math automatically. I knew the checklist by heart. It was muscle memory by now. Even if we sprinted, it would take 55 minutes minimum. I'd done this long enough to know there was no human way to clean everything to code in 15. Cranston didn't care. He blew the whistle right at midnight. Closing time. Let's make it count. The words echoed through the kitchen, bouncing off stainless steel and nerves. I turned to my crew, the same three faces who'd been surviving this circus with me. Tanya, grease-streaked and already tying her hair up for the fryers. Luis, spatula in hand, jaw clenched tight. Kayla, tired eyes but that flicker of defiance I'd come to love. I said quietly, all right, 15 minutes. Let's do this exactly how he wants it. Tanya's lips curved into a grin. Exactly. Exactly. Luis gave a little salute. Aye aye, Captain Compliance. Kayla cracked her knuckles. Let's give him a show. We moved like clockwork, fast, efficient, precise, but only within the window. At 12 the timer started. Tanya drained the fryers, but didn't filter. Luis scraped half the grill, one side only. Kayla bagged trash, but didn't tie it up. I wiped surfaces, but only what the customers couldn't see. The rest? Untouched. No shortcuts. No overtime. No heroics. Every task on the list that couldn't be finished by the timer got marked as incomplete, per policy in the logbook. At 12:14, I called out, 1 minute. We all froze for a moment, looking around the battlefield of half-clean equipment and grease-glossed floors. Then, with the grace of synchronized swimmers, we each walked to the register, clocked out at 12:15 on the dot, and put the pens down. I looked at Cranston. We're done. He scanned the kitchen, his face twitching between disbelief and fury. This isn't done. You said 15 minutes, I said evenly. It's been 15. You can't just leave it like this. We followed the rules, I said. Your rules. He opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. His whistle hung useless around his neck. The next morning, I got a call from the opening manager, a guy named Paul who'd been there since the store opened. LJ, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. What the hell happened last night? What do you mean? I asked, all innocent. The grill was black. The fryer oil looked like coffee. And there were eggshells in the shake machine. I blinked. We don't serve eggs. I know. I could hear him pacing through the phone. Dana's gonna have my head. What's going on over there? I sighed. New policy. You'll have to ask Cranston. Click. By noon, the district chat was blowing up. Health code violation, sanitation concern, staff noncompliance. The kind of words that make corporate people sweat through their suits. By 4 p.m., Dana was back at the store. By 5 p.m., Cranston was in the office with her, door shut. By 5:10, his whistle was on the desk. They did an inspection that evening. I wasn't there for it. I was scheduled off, but Tanya texted me updates like play-by-play commentary. Tanya, she's checking the logbook. Tanya, she saw your per policy notes. Tanya, she's not mad. Tanya, she's smiling like a shark. Luis added a photo of the clipboard lying on the floor. Caption, the whistle is dead. Long live the whistle. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my drink. Monday morning, Dana called me. LJ, you have a minute? Always, I said. I wanted to let you know that we concluded our review of store 4477. The manager, Mr. Cranston, has been terminated effective immediately. I didn't say anything for a moment. I'd imagined this call for weeks, but hearing it out loud still hit weirdly quiet. For falsifying policy, labor violations, and non-compliance with sanitation standards, she added. That sounded about right. Thank you for your professionalism during this process, she continued. You and your team handled things correctly. I'm recommending you for interim management while we hire a replacement. I almost laughed. You mean I get to unbreak what he broke? Basically. Well, I said, we've got a lot of degreasing to do. The first day without Cranston felt like someone opened a window in a room that had been locked for too long. The kitchen air literally smelled better, or maybe that was just because we deep cleaned everything for real. The crew came in early on their own, determined to undo the weeks of grime. Tanya was humming. Luis was joking again. Kayla had her earbuds in, smiling as she restocked sauces during open hours, like a quiet rebellion. We'd gone from fear to freedom in less than 24 hours. Customers noticed too. A regular came up to me and said, "Place looks like it's run by adults again." I laughed. Trying to. We even brought back the little things that made the job bearable. Music during prep, joking around at close, sharing leftover fries instead of hiding them like contraband. The laminated signs went into the trash. I didn't even peel them off. I yanked them down like bandages. The sticky residue they left behind was the only proof they'd ever existed. When things settled, I realized something strange. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't exactly happy either. Cranston getting fired didn't feel like victory. It felt like cleanup. Necessary, but hollow. Because he wasn't an anomaly. He was the system at its worst. The kind of manager who climbs the corporate ladder by memorizing the rulebook and forgetting the people. And the fact that it took weeks of proof, photos, and internal emails to convince anyone to care, that stung more than any whistle ever could. Still, I didn't regret anything. Not the late nights. Not the notebook. Not even the quiet moment when I decided to stop arguing and start documenting. Malicious compliance isn't about revenge. It's about clarity. It's what happens when you hand someone enough rope and then step back to watch them tie their own knot. A few weeks later, Dana stopped by again. No clipboard this time, just coffee. She pulled me aside and said, "I wanted to thank you personally. That kind of professionalism isn't common." I smiled. I just followed the rules. Her lips quirked. Exactly. She handed me a small envelope, a corporate gift card, and a handwritten note. For keeping things running when leadership didn't. That meant more than the raise ever did. 2 months later, I transferred to another store. Not because I had to, but because I needed to. The new manager they hired was fine, I guess, but after what we'd been through, Burger Barn Express felt haunted. Every time the grill sizzled, I half expected to hear that whistle. On my last night, I stayed late, on the clock, to do one last deep clean. I scrubbed the grill until it shone like a mirror. Tanya leaned on the counter. "You sure about leaving?" "Yeah," I said. "But this place is in good hands." She grinned. "You mean my hands?" "Exactly." We stood there for a minute, breathing in the smell of clean steel and soap, the opposite of what it had been just weeks ago. As I clocked out for the last time, I wrote one final line in the logbook. Final close, 11:45 p.m. Status, complete. Notes, rules followed. Floors clean. Grill perfect. Then I added one more note in small handwriting at the bottom. Sometimes, the only way to prove a rule is broken is to follow it.